Hey guys, I'm Ray, and we are streaming blacksmithing. Today, we are going to be continuing working on our hot cut hardy project. I have already started the forge and am heating up the piece of steel. It is a larger piece of steel, so it's going to take a little bit longer for it to heat up. So it's already been heating up for about 10-15 minutes or so. Hopefully we should be able to get to the press sooner than later. I did not have time to do any grinding. Welcome in, Mahalo. Thank you so much for that subscription renewal. Thank you so much. We have been together for 7 months. My goodness. That is so crazy how long that we've actually been, streaming and, hanging out together. That is so cool. Happy Friday. Welcome, everyone. So like I said, today's project is continuing on the hot cut hardy. I don't know if you guys can see this very well. I tried to make it as dark as possible. But yeah, today's project, hot cut hardy. And then I made a little drawing of what it's supposed to look like. I don't know. You guys might not be able to see it. Maybe you can. I don't know. My little screens, like my monitor screens, are like yay big, and I can't see where I'm blind as a bat. So today's propane sponsor is Pugil88 and Winkle Dude. We haven't changed to that particular tank yet, and I will discuss that again later on in the stream when I do change those tanks. But I wanted you guys to be able to read it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I think that has a better chance of you being able to read it than the sign that I put on the propane, so I don't know. I'll see what we think, if it looks all right later. Afternoon, Corwin. I am actually pretty good. For once in my life, I don't feel absolutely exhausted, so that is awesome. But yeah, so we've got a lot going on today. I want to continue working on that hot cut. We are going to be working on the shaft of it still. I did not have time to grind it down any further, so we will be using the press to kind of forge that down. We'll get a little bit more length because it sits in the hardy hole, but it doesn't go deep enough that I feel comfortable going whole hog on hammering it into the slot. So we're just going to take a little bit of extra time, go over to the press and work on that a little bit, and then we will start working on that wedge. So this will probably take until Monday to finish this project at least. So I apologize for not getting things together fast enough so that I could grind that. I didn't want to start the stream tired, so I just didn't do the grinding today. And I was editing all day yesterday, so I did not have time, unfortunately. I've never used a hardy hole tool. Are they taper fit or are they slightly loose? Well, a hardy hole tool is supposed to fit relatively tightly towards the top. So basically, to get them to fit, what you do is you taper the bottom so that it will fit in the hardy hole, and then you use a sledgehammer or a large forging hammer blow to kind of shove it in there, and that kind of will tighten it to the point where it sits in there, and then you pull it out, put it back in a couple different times, and then it should be loose enough to get it out when you need it to, but tight enough that it isn't going to shake in there. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so we have a couple millimeters that will at the bottom of that shaft that will fit into the hardy hole, but I want to make it a little bit more before I start really heavily hammering on it, because I just think that if I use the forging blows, it'll just fall out, and I don't want that to happen. So we're going to do a little bit of press work before we start hammering it into the hardy hole assignment. We are about to have an ad break, And we are still actually waiting on our steel to get hot enough so that we can work it anyway. We are working with A2, which is a very hard steel to work with. You've got to get it really, really hot. So we don't probably have a lot of time on this propane tank before we need to change it out, so that we can maintain that high heat, but I want to empty this guy. Do they protrude at the bottom so they can be tapped up in case it's really stuck? So usually, a lot of times what people will do is they'll take like a chisel or a punch or something, and they will stick it up in the bottom and then hammer the end of that to pull out your hardy tool. Because like I said, you want it to be tight enough that it's not going to wiggle around when you're using it. But you don't want it so hard that it's like almost impossible to get it out. We're not riveting it in there. We're just we want it tight enough that it's not going to like jiggle around and mess up the cut. I've seen some hardy shanks that have a slot in the bottom that you can hammer a wedge into to lock it in. But that's more useful for bending jigs or anything that you torque on a lot. Yes, definitely. Trans-dimensional Shambler, welcome to the stream. I am on ad time, so I'm not sure if you're actually seeing that. You might just be in ads right now. So, but welcome to the stream. Welcome. Once this ad's done, I've got a couple other businessy type stuff to talk about, and then we can maybe get started on the blacksmithing, depending on how hot this guy is. How we doing in there? We're at a nice orange. It's not like a bright orange, but it's like a solid orange. So we want to get higher into the colors and get into the yellows before we're forging, or at forging temperature as much as possible. All right, the ad break has ended. Welcome in, Trans-dimensional Shambler. Welcome to the stream. So yesterday I did a whole bunch of shorts, or I made a whole bunch of shorts for YouTube, and I started editing our axe video. And I also cut a little sliver of footage so that I can make a welding emote. Because you guys asked for one last Friday. And I was finally playing with that footage. So I have a 3-second little clip that I want to turn into an emote. However, I forgot to make it into an emote, so it's just sitting on my hard drive as the clip. So if you guys are, excited about that clip, about that emote, the welding emote, ping me on Discord so I will remember. That'll help me remember. Also, I think we are full on our animated emotes. So if there's another animated emote that you guys are kind of bored of, or that's just not high quality, let me know which one you might want to replace with the welding emote. But yeah, I want the emotes to be exciting and fun to use for you guys. Also, I think I need another subscriber badge. I think I'm finally getting to the point where I need that subscriber badge so that, because we're at the time where the next subscriber badge will change. So I need to remember that as well. I keep saying I'm going to do it and then I keep forgetting. Let us see. Close on the heat, but not quite there yet. So what have you guys been up to since Wednesday? Anything fun and interesting, or just dull work? like I said, I've been doing a lot of editing, so I'm pretty rested, which is really exciting for me. I sometimes when I have to do extra days of forging, then I come in the next day to stream, and it's just I'm just worn down. But yesterday it was pretty relaxing, so I'm feeling pretty good today. Forging a square punch at the moment. Ooh, square punches are so much fun to do. And it's kind of unusual, right? Because you don't really imagine that you'd be able to just straight up make a square hole. Everybody's like, or most holes that we make are round because you drill them usually, right? But as a blacksmith, and when you're hot punching, you can pretty much hot punch any shop or any shape that you want on that slot. So that's so cool. Honestly, one of these days I want to make a star, like a 5-pointed star punch, and see if we can't make a star-shaped hole. I think that would be a really interesting project someday. So I think that I need to figure out, or like I need to figure out a way to like make the punch though with like the little star shape. Um, or I guess the drift, because it's gonna end up being a drift. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to see if we can manage it. I'm wondering if it's going to end up being a star shape or if it'll be a pentagon. I'm not entirely sure how that will work, but I'm very interested. Mahalo went to the state fair on Monday. Ooh, that does sound awesome. Just a little editing and writing or waiting on moving, which are all anxiety all in of itself. Oh, I can't describe how anxious I was when we moved the last time. We had a house in another town, and when we bought this house or this property, um, it was really nerve wracking because the house that we had before, it was really easy. We kind of inherited that house. So when we actively purchased a new property, it was kind of intimidating because of all of the paperwork and stuff that we had to do. So I do not envy you having to move. Oh. Seems like a grinding project. I mean, it might be a grinding project, but I think we could probably make it anyway. You know, with a combination of the swage block and some chisels, I think it's possible. I'd like to try it at some point. But I mean, it might end up being a grinding project in the end. I don't know. Assembled a corn cob cannon on Wednesday. A corn cob cannon. So is that like a pumpkin cannon? I know that there's like pumpkin cannons out there, and usually a lot of those are actually made out of like compressed air, or like, you know, with compressed air, and it just like shoots out the pumpkins. But I mean, I feel like a corn cannon. There's any number of ways that you can do that. Are you shooting out the little corn kernels, or are you shooting out ears of corn? Moving several states away too. Oh my goodness. Yeah, same design, smaller pipe. That makes sense. That would be so much fun though. Although I kind of feel like a corn cob might be able to do a little bit more damage. I mean, it's really light, but if you're using the same design, it might shoot out faster. So, but it's also pointed on the end. So I don't know. You'll have to let me know how much damage it does in comparison to a pumpkin shooter. Welcome in, Jack. Ahoy. Welcome in. We are just getting started. We're getting really close. We've got a bright orange color out right now. So very shortly we should be able to start forging. So today is relatively cool out. It's in the 70s Fahrenheit, and it's supposed to start raining today in about an hour and a half. Usually it starts, or it's a little bit earlier or later than when Google predicts when it starts raining. So I'm hoping that it kind of delays a little bit, because I always get a little bit nervous when it starts storming in the shop. Um, because I've got so much metal in here and so much electricity going, I'm always afraid that I'm going to get hit by lightning. And it's an irrational fear, I know, because there are so many other places that have like lightning rods and stuff. I don't understand why I'm afraid, but I am. So I hope it waits. Oh, like the whiteboard. Awesome. I'm glad that you guys can kind of see it. I was hoping that because then, you guys can read what project we're doing and who's sponsoring the propane. And then it'll be more legible on the whiteboard. So I hope it works. What did I miss? I missed one. That ear of corn versus a tree equals a splattered bunch of cob and kernels. Oh. I mean, I kind of feel like that's with the pumpkin too. You hit a tree with a pumpkin and you get just pumpkin seeds everywhere, and it kind of explodes out with all the like guts and stuff. I do actually appreciate pumpkin cannons and I guess corn cob cannons as well. Much better than when they shoot the anvils, right? That always makes me nervous. Not really for the anvil, because I mean, once you buy an anvil, it's your anvil and you can do whatever you want with it. It is kind of a shame when they like break because of it. But I mean, an anvil is very heavy. If you shoot it with enough force, you're going to do a lot of damage. Makes me nervous. Yeah, anvil launching is really sketch. Do American Gladiator assault, but with corn instead of tennis balls. Ooh, that would be fun. I don't know. I think that would cause some welts. All right. I think we're getting to a point where we can probably start forging. It's going to take a little bit of time before we're getting some really heavy movement, but we're at a point where we can start forging. So we're going to do that. All right, I got a really high angle today, so I'm hoping that it avoids the hammer rack and that it's an all right angle. I think it looks pretty good. I am definitely feeling the fan blowing directly on our steel today, so I'm going to need to move that. Definitely, that way we don't cool down our steel prematurely. Alright, there we go on that one. Let's see, where can I move this fan? We'll move it down, that way it's not directly blowing at the steel, but it's nice and still cool in here. I think I remember you saying this is an air-quenched steel, but I don't remember the designation. The designation is A2, so let me write that down for you guys on the whiteboard. It's A2 steel that we're working with today. So A2 steel is an air quenching steel. It is used for industrial purposes for things like jackhammer bits and heavy machinery stuff. It is not typically something that a blacksmith will forge, but I got a whole bunch of it because my local steel supplier got a big order and ended up with like a crazy amount of offcuts. And I got a really good deal on it. So it is possible to forge. It's really difficult to forge. Not something that I would choose to forge if I didn't get that incredible deal on it. So today, I post a lot of shorts on YouTube lately just to advertise the stream as well as the YouTube channel. And normally they get about between 500 and 700 hits a day. And today's video was about 15 seconds long, which is actually pretty darn short. And I think that it was short enough that people couldn't click fast enough. So I ended up getting 1,200 hits by like 11 a.m., which is kind of crazy. So I got over double the amount, I guess double the amount of hits that I normally get on that one. So I was pretty excited about that. So I don't know. We'll see how things go this weekend. I only post shorts Monday through Friday, so usually the weekends are a little on the slow side for the channel. A lot of catching up with our subscribers over the weekend. Most of our new people come during the week. But I was pretty excited about that. We've gotten a little bump in growth for our YouTube channel and a lot of growth in comments. So I'm pretty excited about that. I really enjoy interactions with both you guys on Twitch as well as interactions with all of you guys out on YouTube. So keep those comments coming. They're very exciting and affirming, knowing that people are actually watching my content. It's very encouraging. Oh, it looks like, is it all right? I've said is it like 20 times right now, but I'm wondering if the propane tank is already starting to run low or freeze up. This tank, I think this is the 4th stream that I've had on this tank, and I know that I'm going to be switching, but I'm wondering if I need to switch it now or if I can wait just a little bit. I want to get the last dregs out of this can. Let me check it. I think we're still good for the moment. We got probably a 30 minutes, maybe. I'm not very good at guessing. I don't know. I'll keep an eye on it and see how we're going as far as heat. So, what do you guys think about, or I guess I was going to ask you if there is any of those emotes that you guys are wanting to see, or which emotes that you'd like to replace with other emotes. Like I said, I have another one that's about to be made, but I think we're full on the animated emotes. The one that I've got ready to make into an emote is the welding emote. But I think the animated emotes, those are for subscribers. So I feel like maybe I need to get a few more interesting emotes for the followers, maybe. I don't know. I'm looking forward to the nail making. There might be an emote in that process. I mean, yes, there could be an emote in that process. Welcome in, Christy. Welcome in. I did actually have an idea for a series of emotes. So I know that a lot of creators here on Twitch do like little chibi emotes that are like pixel art of them doing like weird expressions and stuff like that. So I've been considering recently just taking some actual pictures with exaggerated facial expressions and turning those into emotes. So instead of being like, the chibi pixel art, that it would just be a picture of me, and I'm not sure if I think it would be funny. I don't know. What do you guys think? That rad chat. Nailed it. Yes. Whatever speaks to you. I suppose that is true, because I mean, my emotes are really supposed to be like an express or an extension of me as a creator. So I don't know. Maybe I'll just do that. The over exaggerated facial features or expressions, and then you guys can use them. All right, we are actually starting to slow down on our heat, so I may end up changing our tanks. There is still a little bit in the bottom of this tank, like the dregs, but I don't know that we're going to be able to get as high a heat as we need to without changing the tank. So I think I will change the tank after this next heat. Because yes, that'll help us. All right, I'm going to do another heat then. I'm being impatient, and it's a little bit oranger than it should be. It's a little colder, but I think we'll be all right. That back in there, and I'm going to change the propane tank. The rest of the tank can go to the mailbox. Yeah, that's kind of like what I was thinking. The mailbox is super efficient, so I can use them or use this tank with the mailbox. Am I closing it, or am I opening it? Yes, I'm opening it. I think it also might be fun to have, maybe, would you guys like a mailbox emote? Or maybe that can be like the 9-month subscriber badge. Do you guys want the mailbox as an emote? I think that might actually be a fun emote. But I'm not sure it would be amazingly readable. So I don't know. We'll see if I can't make one and if I like it, I want everything to have a decent quality. But you guys seem to like the mailbox, so it's kind of my mascot a little bit, I feel like. That and the wasps. It's hot enough. Hot enough to make an explosion. Alright. That's why I usually don't just start the forge off the heat of the previous tank. It does create kind of like a big explosion, a puffy explosion. Yeah, so we're good now. Okay. Good evening, Sandwich. Welcome to the stream. Welcome, welcome. Let me check my stuff real fast. Maybe I will do this one a little bit. Okay. There's that. And I'm going to flip my clip on this one as well. Cool. So yes, super exciting. Could have an animated tongs emote. That could be cool too. You know, like open and closing and stuff like that. Can you make animated subscriber badges? Is that a thing? I don't know. Also, I do have the Twitch extensions that add emotes because I watch a lot of VTubers and things like that, and they always have like more emotes than Twitch allows. So you put them on the extension. So if you guys have the extension, I could add some more emotes to that. Then everybody could have those emotes. A lot of those are they have a certain number of slots that you can use. More if you pay for the extension, but if you guys are interested, I'll do my homework on what it would take to upload more emotes onto the extension. I don't think animated badges are a thing yet. Wouldn't that be cool, though, to have animated subscriber badges? I mean, you might actually have to do, like, a higher tier of subscription. Like, they might not let you do it for, like, a tier 1, but, like, I think that it would be cool for, like, maybe a tier 3 subscription. We don't have anybody who's a tier 3 subscriber, but I know that there are a lot of people who are tier 3 subscribers to larger user Twitch channels. So that might be an interesting thing to have. I know that Discord has like animated things that you can attach to your name. So we are about to start a new or an ad. But I forgot to once again point out that today's propane sponsor is Pujil888 and Oinkle Dude. Each of them donated money to. Pujil donated $10 to my KoFi for my birthday, and Oinkle Dude donated a whole bunch or cheered a whole bunch of bits. So combined, they made $25 and sponsored a propane tank. So thank you so much for those followers, subscribers, and supporters. Thank you guys so much. So yeah, I don't know as far as like what we can do. Like I said, I'll try and research the extension to see if I can't add some more emotes. If you guys are interested in seeing those. I never really thought that I'd have that many emotes that I would need those extensions, to add them. But like I said, I think we're out of animated emote slots. So I will look into that. So we've got an ad here coming up very shortly. And we have a little bit more time left but by the time the ad is over, we might be able to do another heat on the steel. What's a good size for a smithy for a starting blacksmith? I'm trying to plan ahead. Honestly, a smithy can be a 10 by 10 shed. It can be like 5 by 5. It depends on how much equipment you're wanting to have and what you are planning on making. And I can go a little bit more in depth after the ad if you'd like. I'm not sure if you can read this or not, or I mean, if you can see this or not. But I mean, really, you can make a smithy out of as small a footprint as you have. You don't really need a lot of space. It's just kind of what are you making? You only need as much space as you need, if that makes sense. I'd say most of them are about 6 feet tall, 200 pounds. I am not 6 feet tall, 200 pounds. I am apparently not most blacksmiths. I'm close to that. So I am 5'5" and 125 pounds. But I'm taller with my boots. My boots add about an inch. So I'm like 5'6", But yeah, I'm about 125 pounds wet, so yeah. Judging by seeing you go through the doorway, I was guessing 5'6"-ish. Yeah, like I said, I've got these lovely boots on that raise me about an inch, so I'm 5'5", but I look 5'6", right? I know right now I got a propane forge in a box waiting to be assembled and a small 50-pound Harbor Freight anvil. That is, Jack's right, that is a great way to start. Like a small cheapo anvil and a propane forge that you can buy off of Amazon. Now, I will say, I have to say this because if I don't say this, I could get sued. Before you start blacksmithing, please find another blacksmith or a BANA or a blacksmithing association near you. Attend some meetings. Learn how to properly start a forge. Learn what you like and what you dislike about blacksmithing. But learn from someone, please, because blacksmithing is somewhat dangerous, and I would hate to see somebody who I encouraged to start get injured because they didn't learn the proper way to start a forge or whatever. But yeah, a blacksmithing shop, it can be as large or as small as you need for your projects. I know for a long time, my shop was just like, this little section that I would pull out and put away when I was done using it because I didn't really have a dedicated space for it. Eventually, I ended up in a one-car garage. Once again, I'm here in a one-car garage. I do also have the space behind there that is about a 15 by 15 shed, 10 by 10 maybe. I think it's more like 15 by 15. But either place, I could make a functional smithy. It's really, what are you making? Are you making large scale pieces, or are you just doing like leaves and nails, you know? You don't need a lot of space if you're making leaves and nails, but if you're making public or large scale public sculptures, you probably need a pretty big shop. Don't want to go boom first day in the smithy. Yes. Safety first until you get in front of a camera. Yes, right? I mean, really, I try to be relatively safe. You know, I do have the apron, the headphones, the earphones, but you guys will occasionally see me do kind of boneheaded moves, like relighting that forge. That was a boneheaded move. I should have actively, you know, restarted the forge like from scratch so that it didn't create that large boom. Because sometimes it's just not quite hot enough to instantaneously start that forge. The reason it went that large, that boom was that big, is because I let a lot of gas escape before it ignited, and so that boom was a lot larger than it should. I should have let it become. The headphones and the earphones. Oh, I meant the safety glasses and the headphones. Safety glasses, because I only got one set of eyes. They're not amazingly good or anything, but I'd rather not lose an eyeball or have to get a piece of slag or anything, you know, removed from my eye. That's not pleasant. Definitely do not want to get a sliver in your eye. As far as the headphones, I need a lot of all of the shop equipment is incredibly loud. It's a lot less loud when I'm using the coal forge, but the gas forge, it's like super, super loud. Most of that sound is actually coming from the air that's being sucked into the aspiration hole. And so some of the more professionally built forges will be a lot more quiet than this particular one. Also, my air compressor is super, super loud, so the press itself is really loud. So I like to save my eardrums so that I can edit music and things like that when I am in the smithy or when I'm not in the smithy. Also, you know, the ringing of the anvil can also be really shrill. Original spare parts are hard to come by. Yes, right? Although I did hear that they did a hand replacement recently, and it's almost as dexterous as the original one. I mean, I definitely don't think that I would want to have a hand transplant, but I guess it's possible now. All right, let's take a look at the steel. Ooh, it's nice and bright. We're gonna do another heat. I'm not sure what I really want to make yet. I like the idea of making utility products for around the farm, so nails, tools, hangers. Don't think space will be a premium for that sort of work. Not really. That sounds like you're doing a lot of smaller scale work. But I still would recommend finding a blacksmith or a association near you, just so that you can kind of decide what you do like about it. always says, or that is always convinced that everyone is going to love blacksmithing. And I mean, I love blacksmithing enough that I made it my career. However, I will liken it to my dabble into Magic the Gathering. I spent like $100 or a couple $100 on a Magic deck, and I found out in the first month of playing Magic that I don't like it. So now I just have a couple $100 worth of Magic cards laying around, and I could have put that money into something else. So I do encourage everyone, try blacksmithing at a Abana function or find a blacksmith. You can look at the Abana website and locate a blacksmith or a Abana chapter. That way you don't end up spending a lot of money on a hobby that you just don't like, you know? Just because I like it doesn't mean everybody's gonna like it. And, you know, I thought Magic looked cool. I thought I'd like it. Apparently I don't. I like working with my hands, so I'm pretty confident I will really enjoy blacksmithing. Well, if that's the case, then more power to you. You know, you can get started. I still, even if you know that you're gonna like blacksmithing, I still do recommend that you get a little bit of training from a blacksmith or in person, because you are gonna learn so much faster from an in-person instruction than you are from watching YouTube videos. I mean, I wish that I had learned from an actual blacksmith. I would have learned so much faster, and I would have been so much better at it. You know, so I don't see any problem with meeting people. You know, I understand that a lot of people are like socially anxious, and you know, I get that too. I'm really don't talk to me until I am in front of a camera, or you know, it's my job to do that, and I totally respect that. But yeah, I still am gonna recommend, you know, go out and meet people. Blacksmiths are so kind, they are so generous, and a lot of them will bend over backwards to help you out. Well, my tank just ran out. Fortunately, I have a spare 20-pound tank. Gotta refill the 100-pounder. Ooh, always fun. I like, oh yes, yeah, that would require going out and meeting people, and I'm not great at that. Definitely a social hermit. I know. It's so bad for a lot of people, and I totally get that, you know. But it's so worth going out and meeting people. It is so worth it. Honestly, I learned a lot of the blacksmithing technique that I do know from going out to the Memphis Metals Museum and talking to the people there. And I was so anxious that the only reason I even made it out there is because some friends dragged me out there, kicking and screaming, and went up to the people and introduced me and like shoved me in front of them and forced me to talk to them. So I totally get the, you know, social anxiety as far as meeting new people and stepping out of your comfort zone. But I would not be where I am today without those people that I met in Memphis, and my friends who shoved me at those people. So I mean, it was so worth it. I don't regret it. But I understand. I do recommend finding some extroverted friends and then dragging them along, because, you know, extroverted people, that's what they're for, right? To help shove you into doing things that you're uncomfortable with. But no, I hear you about talking or taking some lessons. I fully intend to. Yeah. And I mean, I really can't say that, just you can't learn to blacksmith without that, because I did start blacksmithing without that. I did learn a lot of, another large chunk of my blacksmithing from watching YouTube videos. And there are so many things that you can learn from YouTube University and just like the people that post videos there. But there is nothing like one-on-one personalized uh, attention. They can help you figure out what bad habits you're doing, and help you figure out how to do things the right way, faster than you can do that on your own. All right, we're gonna do another heat. Might need to hop on some lessons before I move into that blue or wild blue yonder of rural Maine. Not a whole lot of people out there where we're intending to move. Ooh, Maine. I bet there is a lot of blacksmiths up in that, or up there, that might have an open shop date. I'm in central Iowa. There's a shop 45 minutes from here that does that monthly. How many tons is that bottle jack? It is a 20-ton bottle jack, so it's kind of on the smaller side. But it's the biggest that I can get locally in the area. I did end up ordering this one, but I really couldn't find a bigger one for it, even online. But it's also, the frame for it is designed for a 20-ton press, or like bottle jack, so I was afraid to go up higher. The next highest one is 50, and I was afraid that it would bend the frame. So I am in the St. Louis area, and while I would have to vet you before I allow you to come to my shop, because I am a small woman and oftentimes I smith alone, I would be willing to, host people who I have already vetted. Uh, Thank you so much, JK Knudsen, for the subscription. Thank you so much for the support. Um, so yeah, JK Knudsen is also a streamer. We have been rating him recently. He has been putting together a bike. How is that going? Is it coming together? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention the last time you dropped by. That's all right, because I had to raid and run on Wednesday. Like, I didn't even get to say hi because I just had to. There was I was running I really had to go to the bathroom. And then when I came back, I was just like, I just started tearing things down. So, yeah, I raided and ran. So, I tend to do that. I apologize. After a 15-hour stream, the wheel turned by the end. Oh, awesome. The wheel turned by the end of the stream. 15 hours is a very long day. I definitely could not stream for 15 hours myself. I struggle to stream for 3 most of the time. But that is awesome. I'm so glad that you're getting the wheels to turn. Yes. So are you putting it together to like do anything exciting? Are we selling it? Are we going on a motorcycle tour, or just we want to get it running? 24-hour stream. Ray the Sleeping Blacksmith. Yes. Oh, it's your mode of transportation. Well, that's cool. There was a time where I really wanted to just have a motorcycle be my mode of transportation, but we do get a lot of ice in this area, and I was afraid that in the wintertime I just wouldn't be able to get anywhere. So I have a truck, which is not much better, but at least it's got a heater, right? It's rear wheel drive, so it doesn't go so well on the ice, but at least it's got a heater. Next up is converting the excavator and the ATV to electric. Interesting. We are considering putting solar on our van conversion. We are converting a Chevy Express into a camper van, and we want to eventually we want to put solar on the top. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. It's definitely going to run on gasoline, but we'd like to have the power run as solar. But yeah, Sandwich, I don't think I could do the 24-hour sleeping stream. I feel like that's a little bit creepy, actually. I don't know why people do that. It just seems really goony to me, where people just watch you sleep. I don't know if I could do that. All right, I'm gonna check my clips real fast. Let's see, where do I want to put this? Can I move this any closer without causing myself issues with the wide camera? Let's try it. There we go. On that one. And let's cut that clip too. There we go. I have actually never seen such a stream. I don't think I'd be able to sleep. A bit unnerving. Yeah, I don't think that it's like really amazingly common, but I have heard of a couple of streamers who were doing like subathons, and because like a lot of streamers, they'll do, I will continue streaming for 5 minutes every subscription that I get and stuff like that, and then people will just like deliberately rack up the stream time for like super amounts of time, and then they just have to sleep. They'll fall asleep sometimes, but I don't think it happens often, but occasionally. But I do think that it would be a little bit weird. I don't think I could do it. All right, let's do another heat. And we're taking a look. I know for certain that the end of this bar is small enough that it will go into the party hole, but it looks like we're starting to get closer to parallel, so we might be able to get a little bit further into there. Let's take a look. I think we're doing pretty good. We should be able to come back over to the anvil and see about shoving it down in there some. So I think that's what we're going to do next. Okay, and I am going to move the camera one more time. Well, not one more time because I'm going to move it a lot more times, I think. But I am going to move it to the anvil because we're going to take our next heat at the anvil. Let's see if I move this here. If I press that right there, then let's make sure that I can get a nice focus there. Okay. And can I see that? I think we're good. Maybe. Yeah, okay. You can't see the close-up camera in the wide camera. That's always a thing that I wonder if you guys can see. Oh, a whiteboard. Yes. Greetings, Ping. I have made a whiteboard so that maybe, it looks a little nicer than having a piece of paper with a black marker on it that says, people sponsors. And then I figure, maybe it might be nice to, have, what today's project is on the whiteboard. So, I don't know. If you guys like it, I'll try and keep remembering to do it. But welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining us. But yeah, I'm trying to get a little bit more fancy schmancy with some stuff. And like I said, I really think that the piece of paper with the black marker on it is not good enough. So for the moment, whiteboard it is. I might later on do an overlay or something. I haven't decided yet. We'll see. Wide angle cam might have been the focus for a bit too far back. It is rather on the background. Is it? The production value is going through the roof. So I really don't know how to fix the wide camera if it's out of focus, because Let's see about turning it. The whiteboard is at least reusable. No wasting paper that way. Yes, definitely. All right, let me check to see if I'll move that, and then I'll do this, and then I'll do this. But it's really hard to focus the wide cam because I'm trying to focus it on myself, and I'm not there to focus on. So I don't, am I in focus now? I hope. If you switch to a blackboard, will you be whitesmithing then? Maybe I will. So we will be doing another heat once the ad is over. But yeah. I think I'm standing in front of the whiteboard, but like, it's weird because I'm used to the thing is backwards, I guess. Not really backwards, but in my head, I guess. I have to step this direction so you guys can see the board. It is still sufficiently sharp, I would say, but as you have become fancy. Okay. I'll try. Like I said, I have the wide on autofocus, and the lens has a relatively high depth that it maintains focus on. So I do my best. But thanks. And also, thank you so much, Piled 3D, for that follow. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the community. Thank you so much for your support. I try my best to turn up the quality as we go. I guess it locks on the background today. That is weird. I'm sorry. Like I said, it is an autofocus. It might actually be locking onto the whiteboard because it is white. And I don't know why, but autofocus really loves like bright things, shiny things. So it might be the whiteboard it's locking onto. I wonder how expensive a telestrator would be to use. What is that? A telestrator. Are you talking about like closed captioning? I'm not sure I like this one. So we went to Sam's to buy more Gatorade because I was running low of the red, white, and blue ones that we had, and they had a new flavor, and these are mashups. So apparently this flavor is cool blue and fruit punch, and I don't know why, but it tastes like grape, and I cannot stand artificial grape flavor. Live annotation overlay, writing on the screen. Oh, like what they use on football instant replays. Yeah. I could do something like that, but that would be a lot of effort. I don't know. I know for sure that I would not be able to actively change them. I could do overlays, and I could probably animate those overlays, but I definitely don't think that I could actively animate or like change which one was up. So I would have to have a super mod to be able to do that for me, I think. Somebody who is like actively working a switchboard. There is an OBS plugin if you use OBS. Interesting. I don't know. I do kind of like, I really like the clean look that I have with the stream, because when in my head when I am thinking about what I want the stream to kind of look like, I want it to be like a show. So we just have like talking segments. It's more like a live show as opposed to like, I don't know, a stream, because I have like a specific block of time and stuff. I'm not entirely sure what the difference would be though either. So I don't know. Let me think about it and I will try to explain. All right, let's do another heat while we're here. While I'm thinking. Oh, look. I remember things now. I promise you guys on the anvil heat. Or I promised myself, maybe? Is it working? All right. See if we can pull this out now. All right. There it went. All right, we're going to put this back in the heat. I think we're getting it in a decent amount of time. So I think we're going to sit on the anvil for a little while until we can get it down in there enough. I remember what number version of dyslexia is. It's dyscalculia. Ah, cool. If you're like me, you might set or end up setting up the plugin for whatever or whatever, use it once and then forget about it. I can see that happening. I do that kind of stuff. I also have a habit of saying that I'm going to do stuff and then forgetting, and it takes like 6 months for me to remember again that I'm going to do it. Like when I was doing my subscriber badges, it took me like 6 months to come up with subscriber badges. Before that, I don't even remember what I was using. I think they were just the colored stars that are like the default. But yeah. So, for our next step, the thing that I really need to remember is to be very careful about the top, because now that we are hammering our shaft into the hardy hole, what is going to happen is we are going to end up upsetting the top section, and we don't want that to happen. And the reason we don't want that to happen is because eventually we are going to want a wedge shape, right? So we got that nice triangular shape because that is what is going to allow us to cut our bars apart. So as we're upsetting, it is going to turn the profile from two parallel sides, and it's going to start mushrooming it out. So I got to be really careful about that, and we'll make sure that we need to correct that as we go so it doesn't get out of hand. I feel that. I started writing things down to remind myself, then probably lost the spiral notebook. See, I've taken to having people post things in my Discord. And and or posting things myself in my Discord that I want to remember, because then in the Discord it will ping me, you know, and it'll have that little white dot right next to the channel until I look at it, and then it reminds me later. So I try to use Discord. I also have a spiral notebook, but that usually I use for when I am like writing scripts for stuff that I want to say for my videos and things like that. I've been writing scripts so that I can kind of organize my thoughts that for the videos that I want to edit. It gives me, or it also speeds up my editing time, because then I can make a AI transcript of everything that I've said, and from there I can kind of search for keywords of things that I want to put in the video for sure, and it allows me to know what I need to still record, if that makes sense. Could you put it in the forge in such a way that only the tip gets hot and the backside much less? If it's cooler, it should move less. Yes, I definitely could do that. It would be a lot easier to do in a coal forge than it would be in a gas forge. Gas forge is kind of a to whom it may concern, whereas a coal forge is very specific. We are heating this particular section of the piece of steel, and I could pull it out, but the reason I have it so far in there is because I can, or the bricks that I have, or I try to keep as much heat as possible. It's really hard to open and close the bricks, so if you see me struggling to get the steel out, it's because I'm trying to hold in as much heat as possible. So if I had actually built a door to the forge, it would be so much easier. My old forge actually did have a door that I could open and close, and it just had like this little window where I could have my stock sticking out of if I was using longer stock. But then if I had a bigger piece, I could open the door, pull it out, close the door back up, and then it was a lot easier to work with. So I have a lot of trouble pulling stuff in and out of the forge, and so I guess I have to come up with a better way to do things. I'm considering setting up a chat command for stuff I should buy that think of while streaming and then forget after. Interesting. I don't know. I think I just forget. Overall, I would just forget, regardless. Because I don't look at my chat very frequently when I'm not actively streaming. Because a lot of times it just kind of goes away. And then I definitely have set and forgot my, what is it? Streamlabs? Man, you guys told me that I had my Instagram link underneath of my Facebook post, or like the Facebook section of the link in the Autobot like thingy, and it took me months to fix it. I just forget that it's there, and then I can use it, I guess. All right, we're gonna do another heat here at the anvil. All right, so we're gonna stick this in here like so. All right. See if I can do this without getting myself. All right, not bad. We're getting a lot of work in. You can definitely see where that edge is. So we've gotten it that far down. We're going to keep on keeping on. And we do need to pay attention to if this starts leaning different directions. So because it's starting to lean this way, what we need to do is, since I hammer on this side of the anvil, we need to put it in this direction. So I start hammering it this way. So let's put this back in the heat. So this is our next step. It's just hammering the shaft into the hardy hole so that it's going to sit in there really nice. I want the entirety of that section that we tapered down to be able to fit inside that hardy hole. So it will start kind of ripping up a little bit of that section if it gets a little too wide. And we'll have to grind that off to make it look all nice, and so that it's not going to cut or get caught on anything. But we are on to the next step, which is really exciting. So I think for our next heat, what we're going to be doing is for our next heat, we're going to go back over to the center area of the anvil. And the reason we're going to do that is because I want to take a look at that top. It's starting to mushroom like I said that it would. So I want to hammer that back. Make sure that it doesn't mushroom too far out. I really need to be able to control that because we want to taper it in, and it'll take longer if if it's mushrooming out before we do that. So yes, it is cool, Ping. It is cool. We're getting there. We're gonna get a new tool soon. So now I've got to think. I've got a couple ways that I can do this, right? So right now, I kind of have a T shape going where I've got the shaft, and then it kind of has some hips that it's sitting on or should be sitting on in the hardy hole. And it's a lot skinnier in the other direction, so it's wider and then skinnier, right? So I now have to decide which direction do I want the wedge to go. Do I want to take that wider side and taper that in? Or do I want to go with the flow and use the skinnier side because it's already skinny? So I have to kind of decide that, which is going to be better. And I don't necessarily think either way is going to be better than the other. It might be faster to go with the flow. I haven't decided yet. Once we get it into the hardy hole, then I guess I will have to decide. So I'm planning on making the nail header this weekend. So basically my idea is that I have a sheet of 1/4 inch thick stock. I also have a sheet of 1/2 inch thick stock. And it would be a lot easier or I mean, it would be a lot less stress if I use the 1/2 inch stock. But all I really need to do is cut a section of that with a handle on it and drill a hole in it. So I'm not going to do that on stream because I don't think it's amazingly interesting to watch. Like me actively cutting the stuff, especially if I am doing the 1/2 inch piece, because if I'm doing the 1/2 inch, then I'll be using the bandsaw to do that. Whereas if I'm doing the 1/4 inch, I can use the angle grinder. It'll go a little bit faster, but it won't last as long. So I'm thinking I'll probably end up using the bandsaw and the 1/2 inch just so that it lasts the longer. But I'll try and record it so that I can make a short out of it. I don't think I have enough interesting looking material to make a full video on it, but I'll try and make a short out of it. That way, when we get done with the hot cut, we'll be able to immediately start making nails. So that is my plan. And then the design of the nail header that I am planning on is, I kind of want it to be the shape of a spoon, right? So it's like round at the head of it where I've got the hole for the nail to go in. And then it's kind of got like a little handle. So yeah, I'm thinking that I want like a spoon shape, like similar in shape to those ice creams. You know, you get ice creams and they come with that wooden spoon, and you kind of eat the ice cream when you're a little kid at school. That's kind of the shape that I'm going for. And then I'll drill a hole in for the nail to make that head. I don't know. What do you guys think? In Norwegian, those are called spikerios. I have one somewhere. Are they? Because here in the United States, I don't necessarily know that they have like a name necessarily, but they have like they're like these little single scoop containers, right? And they're like little plastic things, and you peel back the little cardboard, or sometimes it's like aluminum foil, and then you have like this little wooden spoon sitting on the top, and it fits right in there, and you can like scoop it out of there. And it's usually vanilla. And I just remember it being dessert for like school lunches, and it tasted more like the wood of the spoon than the ice cream itself. But interesting. I learned so much streaming with you guys. All right, we are going to do our next heat. You know what? Before I do that, I'm actually going to change the angle of the camera, and the reason I'm going to do that is because I want to make sure that you guys can really see. Wait, that cord is probably in the way. There, you can probably see that. I want you guys to be able to see the center of the anvil where I'm actually actively going to be working. Okay. There we go. That's better. Because if I did it that way, it would just be like in the corner. I want to make sure that it's, nice and in front and center, and you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, that's not working well. But this will. Work well enough anyway. All right. We're going to put this back in the heat, and then our next heat will be back on the Pritchell hole, I think. I am going to do this real fast. So I'm kind of centering that in there. All right, back in the heat. Alrighty. And then now I am once again going to change the camera angle so that you guys can see the party hole. In the center of the frame. There we go. As I run into my oxyacetylene torch that's sitting over there. All right, so we've got an ad starting shortly, and that'll be in about 2.5 minutes according to my timer. And so in about 5 minutes, I'll do my next heat so that you guys can make sure, or so that I make sure everybody can see it. So yeah, pretty exciting. I am starting to think that I want to do the wedge shape on the skinnier side. So I've got a skinnier side and I've got a wider side. And I could take the wider side and wedge it in there, but I think what I want to do is I want to take the skinnier side and wedge that. That way I only have to worry about the upsetting on one side, and it'll be a lot easier to manage it from the wider side. So I think that's going to be my plan. I'm going to lose my hammerhead is what's going to happen. All right. I'm going to change hammers because I keep telling myself that I am going to replace the handle on this thing, and I never do. So I'm going to use this hammer, I think. This hammer should do pretty well. It is also a 3-pound hammer, which is like 2.5 kilos, I think. Are you going for a flared or straight hot cut? Flared. So the wedge is going to be like this, but I think the end is going to be a little bit flared, especially if I don't take care of the mushrooming at the top. So I'm thinking, like I said, I'm thinking it's just going to be flared. I didn't draw it that way. Here I drew a straight wedge, but I think that it's going to end up being flared. Sometimes you have to kind of go with the flow in as far as your designs. A lot of times, you can do exactly what you're trying to do, or make it happen. But sometimes it's just you get those happy accidents, and I don't think that it's necessarily a happy accident, but 3 pounds equals 1.4 kilograms. I was close. I said about 1.5 kilos, and you know, I was 0.1 kilo off, so I guess I was a gram, or yeah, a gram off. No, 10 grams off, because it's gram, decagram, and kilogram. So I was 10 grams off. So we are currently on add time. Add time, add time. Ow. So for a while, my thumb was feeling a lot better. But recently, it's been acting up again. I don't know what I did to it. Was I off 100 grams? Oh, because kilo is 1,000, isn't it? Okay, you're right. I was, because deca. So what is between then? Deca would be 10. What is the 100? Cena? Would it be a centigram? Yeah, I'm not amazingly good at the whole metric system. I'm trying to decentralize, you know, imperial measurements and whatnot, you know, in United States, because I do have such an international audience, but I am really bad at it. A centigram would be 0.01 grams. Okay. So what would be 100 grams then? Yeah, I don't know. What would be 100 grams then? A decikilo? No one uses that. Not sure if there's a name for 100 times. See? I don't know. Because, I mean, you got the millimeter, you got the centimeter, you got the meter, you've got the decameter, and then the kilometer. But there isn't 100, is there? Because it's 1,000 meters, right? But a mile is bigger than a kilometer, I think. A decimeter. I don't know. I'm just making shit up. All right, we are at an ad time, so I am going to do another heat. And apparently I need to do some research, you know? Some research on metric units. Learn more Greek metric users. Yes. I think I'm already here. All right, we're gonna pull this out now because I want to turn this backwards. This direction. All right. We're getting there. Few more heats. As I struggle to get this stupid thing in there. There we go. My brain struggles with the simplicity of the metric system. All the tens, freedom units, have forever corrupted my brain. Looked it up. 100 grams would be 1 hectogram. I doubt anyone uses that though. It's called freedom units, as in free of any concept or logic. Cause Murkoff. Oh right, we don't use it for weight, but hecta is sometimes used in 100 meter by 100 meter. Yes, I have heard of hecta as a prefix for area, like, or hectare. Isn't that a thing? Isn't that like a square, like an imperial measurement would be an acre? But I thought hectare was the metric equivalent of that. I mean, it is so totally, confusing, like the imperial standard measurements. But I do believe that eventually, instead of using the king's body as, the default measurement, I think we actually started using, like, latitudes. Or no, it was longitudes, because the longitudes, they're the long ones, and they go from the North Pole to the South Pole. So I'm pretty sure that eventually we did end up dividing the longitude lines into distances, and that's how you get feet and inches and stuff. 1 hectare or 100 acres, I think. Okay. That makes sense. Man. So I had someone yesterday who was on YouTube watching the raw streams. And I think that on Wednesday I was talking about how I need to convert my units of measure. And they were like, yeah, you definitely do, on the YouTube. And here we are talking about how I'm terrible at making the conversions again. But yes, I'm terrible at making imperial to metric conversions. And it is very difficult for me to just start in metric, because all of the tools and the, like, stock that I buy is already in imperial, so it's a lot easier to deal with. Wikipedia, the hectare is a unit of measure for an area with the unit symbol HA. It is mainly used in agriculture and forestry and corresponds to the area of 1,000 square m square, i.e. a square field with sides measuring 100 meters. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. That's where I got that from, I think. Because we have been looking at, or for a while we were looking at farmland, or I guess not farmland necessarily, but land to build a cabin. And they were talking about, or like this particular location that I was looking at, as far as purchasing, they were dividing a hectare of land. So that's where I must have heard that from. We never did end up buying any, like, camping area or land. because about 2 months after we started looking, COVID happened. And so that kind of put a pin in that. Land shot through the roof, like price wise. 1 acre equals 1/640th square mile, and 4,840 square yards equals 43,560 square feet. Wow, that is a lot of numbers. A lot of numbers. I have always been a little bit iffy on reading them too, so I hope I actually got them straight. I think weight, 2 pounds equals 1 keg. Length, 3 feet is 1 meter, and 1 inch equals 2.5 centimeters, and that covers most important proximity. I think I heard that. And that's how I try to estimate things. But I get confused really easily. We closed on our house right when COVID started. Got a good price because the sellers hadn't done the repairs they wanted to before putting it on the market. Yeah. Like I said, land and housing just skyrocketed in price during COVID because there were so many people who were in these tiny, small apartments and they needed places to go, or bigger places to go, or, things like that. So so many people were buying housing and land then. But yeah, we had almost purchased a campground that already had cabins and things, but we couldn't get the funding together in time, so we were not able to buy it. I wish we had, though, because we would have made bank Airbnb-ing out those cabins during COVID. A meter is a little more, and a keg is 2.2 pounds. An inch is 2.58 centimeters. Yeah. It's just so much easier to do the conversions in metric, but if you start in imperial, I get confused. All right, we're gonna do another heat. Let's see if I can't pull this out. It's not wanting me to. All right, if I move this guy over, then maybe I can get it in there. Or maybe not. There we go. That's better. Ah! That was not good. I tipped it on the corner. There we go. Back in the fire we go, but check that out. We're getting further and further in there. And that's exactly what we want to see. It is a little bit off center, so we'll have to fix that. But it'll be all right. As long as we continue turning it as we hammer down, we should be able to center it. Much bonk, such hype, yes. Every imperial measurement is defined in metric after all. That is definitely a bluesy thing to say. Welcome to the stream. I did not know, or I did not see you join us. Thank you for joining the stream. Yeah, I live in a metric world, but have an imperial lead screw on my lathe and the misery of cutting metric thread. 500 grams are colloquially called ein pound here, which translates, which is a translation of pound. Okay. Steve Swade's shoulder. That's a good fit. It's doable, but not really easy. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good fit. The party tool that I'm currently making is a pretty good fit. Like I said, it is a little bit off center, so I need to make sure that I am rotating the piece in the hardy as I am hammering on it so that it will straighten out. I know for a fact that when I am hammering, a lot of my force is actually closer to me. So we're going to get some leaning always toward the horn and always toward the back end of the anvil, like my direction of the anvil. So if we make sure that we rotate it, then we get that even pressure all around. And so it'll stay relatively central. So we've got to make sure that we're rotating the steel around. It's doable, but not really easy. There's that one, or there's that Madonna song, "Live in an Imperial World," but I'm such a metric girl. Yes. Definitely. I'm definitely a material girl. All right, so I'm starting to think, or I think our next heat is going to be done on the face of the anvil, or like on the central area of the anvil. Because like I said, we're getting a little bit of mushrooming at the top. I want to control that, make sure that it doesn't get out of hand. So that's what we're going to do for our next heat. And then we're going to do another couple heats in the hardy. Also, I need to make sure that I am checking the camera every once in a while, because as I am doing such a heavy hammer blow, the anvil is actually starting to shimmy and move. So I need to make sure that I maintain my camera angles so that I don't like shift the anvil out of focus and things. So yeah. You know what? It totally smells like it's about to rain outside. I got that nice ozone smell. The word that I totally don't remember. There's totally a word for that. The smell right after a rain. But I can never remember like the word. You guys know it though. You guys have told me what that word is. Prector, yes. We are living in an imperial world. You are showing the human superpower, the ability to sniff out water over great distances. Yes. I doubt it is ozone there, or though. Um, and maybe it's not. To be honest, that is what my high school science teacher told me, that that smell was actually ozone. But over time, I have found that a lot of things that I was taught in high school weren't necessarily fully true, or they were an overly simplified version of things. So it might not be ozone. Like I said, high school, like, I don't remember if it was chemistry or physics, but that's kind of one of those two instructors. That's what they told me. Maybe it's Frozone from The Incredibles. It's probably the smell of dirt. It is probably the smell of dirt. I mean, because, the raindrops come down and they pick up all of that dirt. The dirt that doesn't absorb the water. I'm not sure that I really like this hammer. I think I've discussed that before. It's got a really long handle. And I have a really, small hand. So this hammer kind of hits me in the forearm a little bit. I prefer short handles. This is my ideal hammer length, right? I get a pretty decent amount of power from that, but I can go like this, and I still have enough grip to get some really precise hammer blows. Ozone can be produced by lots of lightning, so it depends on the rainstorm. Just the smell of rain falling on dry soil. Yeah. Lightning produces ozone, but I've never smelled ozone when there is lightning. Arcs from a HF transformer does give off that ozone smell for reference. Living by a farm, the smell is baked into my nostalgia brain. How would rain produce ozone? It is O3, usually coming from O2 being split up outside. This happens by UV radiation. There's also why sunlight bleaches, because UV cracks the O2 molecules. Like I said, it's just what my science teacher told me. So, and maybe I'm willing to admit I could be wrong, especially in something like that. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. No, don't ever admit you're wrong on the internet. That's where the hate comments come from, right? Negative comments come from admitting you're wrong. I have to say that I used to be really heavy into rating in MMOs. I've kind of retired from that. But when I admit that I was wrong, oftentimes I got blamed for stuff that I didn't do. Fight to the death. I know the smell of ozone from an ancient UV lamp my mother put in front of us during a winter for a few months. No, I just make the negative comments regardless. I mean, that's just how the internet works. People will make negative comments regardless of what you're saying or if you're right or wrong or whatever. All right, we're going to do another heat. This heat is going to be in the center area of the anvil. We are going to be hammering back the mushrooming that we're getting from hammering this into the hardy hole. As a former healer in MMOs, it's never my problem. Stop dying. Yes, it's always your fault for standing in icky. If you're a DPS, that is. Ah. Spinny, spinny. We're gonna spinny, spinny this way now. And a little bit this direction. So that flare doesn't get too bad too early in the process. All right, more heat. And into the fire we go. Ah. All righty. All right, we're gonna go back over to the Hardy Hole. We also have an ad coming up here shortly. So I am going to move the camera again. This time we're gonna move it over here. That way the Hardy Hole is centralized in the frame. That is a giant Penske truck. Ray, do as you will, but do you intend to forge the hot cut from here, or are you planning to cut some of the material off? I probably will end up cutting some of that material off in the event that we do not, or I don't start doing the wedge, because it's really, really tall right now, and it would make more sense if I cut material off. However, if we get to the point where I'm going to start putting the wedge in, then I will probably not stop to cut it off. So maybe, maybe not. I am looking to cut about a ½ inch off the top at the very least, but I also want to make sure that I plan to make that wedge even if I don't cut it off. That's where I was headed, is you could cut it off at a near 45 and then knock the tip over to make the wedge. And Mahalo says Twitch chat is always right. Twitch chat is always right. I mean, it's crowdsourcing, right? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Jack, you are totally right. It would make things work a lot, or go a lot faster. So, like I said, if we don't make it to the wedging section, I may just cut that off at an angle. It would make it really easy, and we could knock it straight. And or we wouldn't even have to knock it straight, because a wedge that works this way is actually going to create like a wedge shape to cut, right? So if you want a straight edge, you want to cut, or you want one side to be straight and the other to be angled. So either way will work. You don't have to use a, centralized wedge. It's just what design you're using. Don't tell him that. It will go to his head. Welcome in, Jaden Fox. Welcome in. But yeah, so there are two different schools of thought on a hot cut, right? So normally when you look at a hot cut, most hot cuts anyway, they're kind of a wedge shape like this, kind of like how I've drawn it here. And So basically what you're doing is you're kind of ripping the piece of steel apart. So you end up getting a diagonal end, right? But if you used a straight side and a diagonal side for that same hot cut, you are going to end up moving material in a diagonal on this plane, but this plane will be a straight plane, right? So if you want a flat edge on one side of your hot cut, that's how you would go about doing it. Oh, cool. Yeah, that's just how things work, right? So when I use a chisel, there is a triangular, like just a, I guess it's an equilateral, not equilateral. What is that called? Not an equilateral. What is it? Where two sides are the same length and the bottom is different. But anyway, you will get a diagonal cut. Whereas if you have a straight edge, you're going to get a straight cut. Are you guys still arguing about ozone? Maybe let's take that to DMs. I'm sorry, guys. All right. Hashtag air. Yeah, I don't want to be like a stickler, but if you could move your I'm sorry. Environmental science on the internet, what could go wrong, right? All right, we're going to do another heat, and we're going to do it here on the Hardy Hole. All right. So I think we are going to put this in this direction this time. We're closing in onto the shoulders that we've made. So that's really exciting. That's exactly what I want to see. Let's see if I can get this out without using my chisel. Awesome. All right, now we're going to stick this in this direction. All right. Let's get this heated back up. All right, there we go. We're getting further and further, closer to those shoulders. It's pretty exciting. Nice tight fit, yes. That's what I'm looking for. I want it to be just tight enough that it's not going to get loose. When I'm using it, but I want it to be loose enough that I can get it out of the Hardy relatively easily. Sorry, there's a Penske truck outside the garage, and they're like unloading stuff, and everybody's having to like change lanes because it's a 2-lane, and it's a busy road out there. All right. So yeah, we're getting really, really close to being able to move on to the next step. I think we're starting to get a little bit late in the stream time. What time is it? Oh, we are at 2 hours 15 or 13 minutes. That's nice. Your new power hammer arrived. I don't have a power hammer yet. I wish it was my power hammer. It looks like somebody is getting like a refrigerator or maybe a hot water heater. That's kind of what it looks like to me. But it's not coming for me, unfortunately. I wish. But we are going to be doing a couple more heats so that we can get a little bit closer to those shoulders that we've created. And then from there, I think I probably will end the stream. We will raid off. And at that point, I'll probably take a look at seeing if I want to cut it so that it makes it a little bit easier for us on Monday to finish it on time. Because I really want to start making those nails. I saw American fridges in German one-family homes. Are American fridges that much bigger than German fridges? I mean, our fridges are probably at least 6 foot tall, and I'd say they're probably at least 3 foot wide. So, a meter wide and 3 meters tall. They are, from what I know. Your neighbors are probably glad you aren't getting a power hammer. Yeah, the power hammers are really, really loud. But I do live in a neighborhood that nobody really cares. I live on a really busy street, and so there's a lot of soundproofing. So the hammer blows that I do in here don't actually carry all that far overall. You have these double wide things. I mean, we have to have double wide things. We got to be able to fit all our food in there. We don't get to go to the grocery store every single day. We go like once a week. Personally, the biggest problem with power hammers is is having a foot separated from the rest of your poured concrete floor. Yes. Yeah, and that's partially why I don't have one, is because I would need to pour a thicker pad to put it on top. Otherwise, it would crack my floor. And I just don't have a place for that right now. If I had a power hammer and I wasn't worried about that, I'd probably put it in the area where over there is actually a furnace there that doesn't work right now. And I might put it there, maybe. I'm visiting in Germany right now, actually. They vary the size as in North America, half the size ones and half the full size floor standing upside down ones. I have a hidden half size right now. Also, hi. Welcome to the stream, dear noobs. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to assume that you're talking about refrigerators and not power hammers, because having an upside down power hammer would not be amazingly productive. But yeah, most people don't live very close to their grocery store, so it's kind of a production when they have to go get it or get groceries. You have to get in the car and, like, you know, it's a whole production. So we have larger fridges so that we can keep more food. Totally poured concrete floor in my shop. It's definitely not plywood. Don't look down. You'd be surprised, actually. Wait, you don't have an upside down power hammer? So yeah, I actually have a really, so the foundation of my house and my shop is not amazingly good. So I really don't, my partner does not want me to have a power hammer this close to the house because he's afraid that the vibrations will damage the foundation of the house. So eventually, when the stream and the YouTube channel and or start making a little bit more money, we are going to build an outbuilding in the backyard. And it's going to be bigger, and we're going to specifically pour the concrete for a power hammer so I can have one. And while I'm out here, it's just a little bit more difficult to do. With an upside down power hammer, you can knock things up then. Yes. Then there's a big freezer for people who buy half a cow or hunt. There's also people who will go to bulk stores and buy a month's worth of groceries at one time. So my grandma had a chest freezer, but she butchered whole cows. So they raised cows and they butchered a whole cow, and then that would be all of the meat that they ate for the year. So that's another thing. A power hammer in a she shed. That's probably the coolest one shed out there, or she shed out there. I don't know. I don't know that I would call it a she shed, because eventually I would like to invite other blacksmiths to come, and there are female blacksmiths out there, but there are far more guy blacksmiths, and I feel like a she shed, I'd only be able to invite the female blacksmiths out, right? My dream is to attend one of the Power Hammer Bridge classes someday. That would be cool. I would love to do that. Or building classes. I heard you got that land next to Ray Smithy pretty cheap. Do you know why? I have not the slightest idea at all. Nice and quiet out here. Exactly, right? So they're actually tearing down the two houses on that side of me, and they're going to be tennis courts and pickleball out there. So I'm not going to have any neighbors on this whole side. I just have neighbors on that side now. So that's going to be cool. All right, I'm going to do another heat. I will probably do 2 more heats, and then we'll raid off. I worked in an industrial CNC for a while. You would believe how many shops install power hammers, brakes, and large plasma tables, only to be surprised when we told them this is the reason their 8-inch foundation is cracking. Right? All right, we're going to do another heat here shortly. Once this is hot, we'll do that one more heat. There we go. It's getting there. We're getting close. All right. I'm getting tired though. Pickleball courts, nice. Also known as free range for testing your cannons. Whoa, that's white, or that metal was white, not, or white hot this time and almost liquid. Um, it was pretty hot. It didn't look white hot to me. But it was definitely the temperature that it needs to be to get really good movement. Oftentimes, the camera will make things look hotter than they are in reality, because of the sensors, and they look for light. So it wasn't almost liquid. It was pretty solid. This is A2, so it does take a very hot, or a lot of heat. Sorry, I'm starting to get tired from doing the really heavy forge hits. So that's why I'm only going to do one more heat, just because that takes a lot out of me. I've always been curious, why are anvils not heated a little, just to give you more time, and not so much as to burn the smith though? So an anvil, oftentimes anvils have a heat-treated plate on top, or sometimes the entirety of the anvil is heat-treated. So when you start heating up the anvil, you'll start losing that temper. The other thing is that as you are working on the anvil, it will start heating up as you go, right? So the anvil will suck more heat out of your steel when you're first starting, and less heat as you continue working on the surface. It will actually get hot. So I don't want, or like right around here where we've been working, it is actually relatively warm. I wouldn't actually want to touch the area around the hardy right now because it is very warm. Can I provide a secondary opinion? Yeah, go ahead. I am always good for secondary opinions. I learned that lesson the hard way when I was upsetting my hardy fuller. Yeah. Gotta be careful with that. It's about pineapples on pizza, or is a hot dog a sandwich? Some places in the north especially do heat their anvils in the winter to prevent brittleness right at the start of the day when first starting up the forge. So in midwinter, when it's under zero, I always start my day with a large chunk of hot steel on the anvil. See, that is also incredibly correct. However, I don't live really far north, so it never gets all that cold here. I only get like 2 or 3 days a year where it, really gets super, super cold. So I guess I just don't think about it. But you're right. If you do live in a place that gets super, super cold, you might want to heat your anvil so that it is a more of a neutral temperature and it's not a complete temperature shock when you are using incredibly hot steel. I would imagine that it would be similar to when I am casting bronze, aluminum, and especially iron. any excess metal gets poured into ingot molds so that you can remelt that steel or that material later. But you always want to heat those ingot molds before you pull that or pour that hot metal in there, because any like liquid that is in or sitting on those ingot molds will instantaneously vaporize and like shoot your ingot mold. Correct. It's a whole different scenario. The edges are more vulnerable to chipping, is the myth that is not science enough to look into myself. On those days, I always stay inside. And the edge of the anvil is very important to make sharp corners so that you do not chip them. Yes. Yes. So yeah, we're both right. You know, Jack is totally right if you live in a super cold space. But like I said, I live kind of, mid to southern United States, so we hardly ever get that cold. So I just don't think about things like that. But yeah. All right. Let me take a look at the steel. Alrighty, we're gonna do our last heat. So this is gonna be one more heat. So if you guys have anybody that you'd like to raid off to after this stream, let me know. I always take requests. If you guys don't have any requests, then I will find a friend or make a friend. Ooh, my local makerspace got a new laser welder system. It's awesome, and the HAZ system doesn't get too how, and you can basically handle the project right after the weld. So nice, exciting. You got to try it. That's awesome. Have I ever met the Mocos? I have not. Maybe I have, and I don't know it. But probably not. Are they streamers, Jack? All right, fine. I'll put it in this direction. Oh. Goodness gracious. Whew. And there we have it for the moment. We could go down a little bit further into this section here where we've got the shoulders built, but I think what I'm going to do is actually grind that so that it is there and clean and ready to go so that we can focus on making the wedge for our next stream. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I have had a blast. I hope you guys have as well. They would be receptive to you, but it's quite chaotic. Moco made. Oh, they're looking to raid out. Okay. Okay. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Thank you, dear noobs, for that follow. Play in the mud is making mugs. Okay, let's do that. How far down would I suggest for a Hardy to go down? I would at least suggest at very least an inch, probably further than that, if you can manage it. Alrighty. Ooh. Play in the Mud is doing some throwing. That's always exciting. I love watching throwing. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching the stream. You can go, if you have any more questions, you can go ahead and ask them in my Discord. And I would be happy to answer them. So you guys have an amazing weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday. Thank you guys so much.